Hey there, everyone. This is Ryan from the Coffee People Podcast. And I want you to know that I don't just host coffee podcasts, I also listen to them. One of our recent guests, James Harper, is the host of Filter Stories. I originally reached out to James because his show is one of my favorite podcasts to listen to. On Filter Stories, James does deep documentary-style dives into things like the history of or the science of coffee from an outsider's perspective. I'm not a science guy, but when James starts a new episode of Filter Stories by heading down the rabbit hole to explore how our perception of smell or taste can be changed by the environment or even the music we're listening to while we drink a cup of coffee, I'm enthralled. I've shared the links to Filter Stories in our podcast notes, but you can also search for Filter Stories on Apple or Spotify. You'll find the show there too. And I hope you listen, because you'll come away not just learning facts, but with an awareness of how you experience coffee. And because you can never listen to enough coffee podcasts, check out Filter Stories on your favorite podcast platform. Before we get started on the show today, I want to shout out the presenting sponsor, Roastar Coffee Packaging. We couldn't do this without them. You can find Roastar online at roastar.com. Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Season 10, Episode 12, the very last of Season 10 of the Coffee People Podcast, which is part of the Roast West Coast Coffee Network and presented by Roastar Coffee Packaging. I'm Ryan Woldt, and this is the show where I and you get to meet cool human beings from all corners of the coffee industry, and we share their story and their journey of how they got from point A to point B, why coffee matters to them, and so much more. As you know, this is the Coffee People Podcast, but names are a funny thing. Originally, this show was called Roast West Coast. Back then, I was only chatting with coffee people here in Southern California, with hopes of expanding north up the coast. But the show has kept growing, and the number of interesting people I was meeting extended far beyond our namesake West Coast border. A few seasons in, we burst our podcast boundaries and rebranded as the more appropriate Coffee People Podcast. There were no other podcasts with that name operating at that time, and coffeepeople.com went to Nowheresville on the internet. And I thought I was the only one. But what I didn't realize was there was already a popular and growing zine in another part of the country with the name of Coffee People. Today's guest, Kat Melheim, is among many other things in coffee, the founder of that zine, which you can find online at coffeepeople.org. I did not think to check the .orgs. Kat is based in Raleigh, North Carolina, and works with Black and White Roasters, whose tagline is exceptional coffee, curious people. So I think we'll get along just fine. While you're listening today, check out Kat's Instagram at roastercat. Kat is spelled with a K, and the link is in the show notes. All the links are usually in the show notes. And while you're there, give this podcast a rating and review. We certainly appreciate it. Okay, I know that this is the last show of the season, which usually makes me a little melancholy, but I'm feeling good. It's going to be a good day. I just finished brewing up a cup of Ethiopia Yirgacheffe from our partners over at Ignite Coffee Company. It looks and smells quite lovely. I hope your coffee mug is full too, because it is time for another Coffee People podcast. This one featuring Kat Melheim, founder of the Coffee People zine, member of the Black and White Roasters team, face behind Roaster Cat Instagram, and you know what? I'll let her fill you in on the rest. Here we go.
My name is Kat Melheim. I'm also known as Roaster Cat on Instagram and to a lesser degree YouTube, but I run kind of an educational platform on Instagram where I share behind the scenes things for roasters and at Coffee Origin when I go on trips and travel. I also run a magazine called Coffee People Zine, which is art and poetry and creativity by folks who work in and around the coffee industry. And I am roaster, content creator for Black and White Coffee Roasters here in Raleigh, North Carolina. So those are the main things. I also do some freelance here and there, but
I was gonna say, I bet there's more than that somewhere along the side. People that do that many things don't stop at that
yeah,
many things.
I write for Roast Magazine occasionally. I do some consulting and freelance, and yeah, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Keep it interesting.
I want to learn more about you today, but I want to start with something easy and kind of work my way into it. So, my first question is maybe the second most important one, which is, do you have a favorite Ninja Turtle or Muppet?
uh, I'd probably have to say Donatello, just because that's the coolest name.
That's an interesting reason. I've asked this question to maybe 100 people, and I'll ask it up front, and then as I'm doing the interview, I'll see why they have picked that person. You'll start to see
Oh,
those traits come out, which is
well,
really interesting.
yeah, I'm excited. Well, I'm excited to hear your assessment of my psychological deep dive into early childhood.
Well, I'll definitely let you know, maybe off air though. So I would love to get some backstory on you. Who are you? Did you have a first experience with coffee that kind of pushed you down this path you're on now?
Yeah, so my background, like education wise, is in social work. I studied social work and Spanish in college, got my degree, did that for a couple of years, and kind of needed an emotional break after a while. I approached and reached and passed burnout at that point. But yeah, my thought was to go back to school, get my master's degree in social work, and do more either capacity building or policy work or individual and group counseling. But I knew that having hit a place of burnout, I needed to take an emotional break. So I decided to get a job where I could leave work at work. It wasn't, high stakes. It was still with people. I love people, but where I didn't have to take on their emotional emotional struggles. So I got a job as a barista, and it was the perfect thing for me because I still got that degree of socialization. And yeah, people would come to me with their problem, which is that they were sleepy and undercaffeinated. I would solve it immediately. They would thank me and walk out the door.
You're a social worker who got paid less. That's what it sounds like to me.
True, true. That's it. So yeah, I was a barista for a couple of years, kind of worked my way through a couple different cafes and kind of up the ranks, I guess, into management positions, and realized that that wasn't exactly where I wanted to go. But at that point, I had really fallen in love with the coffee industry as a whole. I love to continue learning, and I love travel, and I love connecting with people, and opportunities for that are all over in the coffee industry. So I had realized that I wanted to stay in coffee, but not necessarily manage cafes. So I decided to get a job as a roaster. And I kind of found a place. I was living in Denver at the time. I found a shop that was a roastery as well, and got a barista job, but made it apparent that I was interested in learning. And I was there at the right place at the right time, and started learning how to roast. But previous to that, somewhere in between I suppose, in between my beginning barista career and when I became a roaster, the coffee scene, the community in Denver was like really popping off. There were so many amazing people we had throwdowns all the time. This was 2016, 17. I started in coffee in 2013. But yeah, by like 2016, 17, I was really involved and engaged with the local coffee scene. And that's when 2018 is when I started my Coffee People Zine, my magazine. Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of a roundabout way to say I started as a barista. I got more involved. I continued in my career, and here we are.
Yeah. Well, but now you do so much more than, I don't want to say just roasting, because roasting is in of itself a noble pursuit, but you have this wide scope of things that you're doing. creatively as well as continuing to be in coffee. It sounds like you took a barista interlude and never went back. Am I misunderstanding that? There's
That
no
is
social work?
100% accurate.
Okay.
100% accurate.
Once you're kind of in it and you're going down that path, when did you realize that you weren't going back? Because I feel like you had already put in the time and the effort and the struggle to become a social worker. You had gone through that burnout phase. Did you have to talk yourself into it, or did you just kind of know and it just took time to accept it?
Well, maybe a little bit of both, because part of the reason I got my undergraduate degree in social work is because in order to become a licensed clinical social worker, you only need one additional year of grad school in order to become certified. And
Hmm.
instead of like in psychology, you need 2 years minimum, sometimes 4, sometimes 6 years to become licensed psychologist. And so, like when I was going to school initially, I was like, I don't want to spend another 4 ± 2 years in school. So let me get social work. So then I only have to do like this one additional year. But there's a limitation on that, and you have to get that advanced degree within 7 years of getting your undergraduate degree.
Okay.
So it was about 7 years in coffee when I was like, I kind of
Oh,
came to the, yeah, came, I suppose it was closer to like the 5.5, 6 year mark where I was like, do I apply to grad schools now? Like, is that what, am I going to do that? Up to that point, I kind of had thought about it, but was like, no, I'm liking this coffee thing. I'm going to just keep doing this, keep exploring where this could lead. And then I'll go back to school. But yeah, so about 5.5 or 6 years after starting, or I guess after graduating, then that was around 2016. I graduated from college in 2011. Around 2016, 2017 is when I was like, if I'm going to go back to school and do the 1 year thing, I like have to do it now. And I just decided not to, that coffee was something worth pursuing and a career path that I was really enjoying. And I saw so many different ways that career kind of branched into different paths that were all really interesting and exciting for me. So
I find it I still, the further away that I get from this moment in my own life, I find it mind bending that we ask young people to decide on their future and not just decide, but invest so heavily into that
yeah,
future at that
yeah,
age, whatever age it is.
it's wild. Yeah, I thought about taking a gap year between high school and college, but at that point, I think it wasn't as common as it might be now. It also wasn't as common then to just not go to college. Like in my kind of growing up, it was like if you got good grades, you go to college. Or like if you got good grades and you're smartish, at least a little bit smart, you go to college. It was like a no brainer. And I really wish that I had done more. I wish I had been more mature to do more introspection, to be like, maybe this isn't the right choice for me. But
Sure.
yeah,
Logistics come into it too. I mean, you mentioned like you chose social work kind of specifically because it was only one more year as opposed to multiple years, which could be for your how much you're enjoying it, could be financial, could be a number of reasons. I had a very specific conversation with a counselor once who said, if you stay for 3 semesters, you can get a teaching degree. If you stay for 1 semester, you can get a degree in religious studies. And I said, that one, because I don't have any money left. Like, let's do that and go from there. One of the ways you saw coffee expanding out in front of you was creatively. You mentioned it just a minute ago, the Coffee People Zine. It's the reason I reached out to you. The show is called Coffee People, so people keep asking me, have you met Kat? She is Coffee People Zine. And I said, no, I have not. What made you think that there was something, an audience out there that wanted some sort of coffee and creative thing put together, or did you care? What was your motivation for starting that? You know what? I should back up and say, let's give people a quick primer. What is the Coffee People
ah,
Zine? What
yeah,
might we find in it? And then I'll
yeah,
ask you about your
yeah,
motivation.
for sure. So, Coffee People Zine is a celebration of the creativity of the coffee community, but basically it's a print publication that has art and poetry, photography, short stories, articles, drawings, doodles, paintings by people who work in and around coffee. So it's primarily a physical book. It's really more of an art journal at this point than a zine. The first one and the second one were stapled together, but now it's like perfect bound. It has a spine. It has like a soft touch lamination on the cover to give it a really great sensory feel. And it's around 100 pages, give or take. So it's a pretty substantial little book there. Yeah, that's kind of what it is at its essence. So people send me their artwork, whether they're baristas or roasters or other folks who work in coffee, and then I publish it once every 4 months is the cadence right now.
Sure. And is the content is it coffee specific? Like, is it a poem about coffee, for example, or is
Mm-hmm.
it bigger than that? And it just happens to be people who are showcasing their other skills outside of coffee.
Yeah, so I have two rules for submissions. The first is that if you work in coffee, your submission does not have to be about coffee. The second rule is if you don't work in coffee, so there are some coffee lovers or people who like coffee enthusiasts or people who like home baristas or home roasters. If you don't work in coffee, you can still submit, but then your submission has to be about coffee. So it really is more, and from the get go, the purpose of it was to kind of break out of the coffee bubble that we all operate in. The inspiration for it that kind of answers your first question of like, did I know that there was an audience for it? No, absolutely not. In fact, I have very rarely ever stopped to think, who is the audience? It's way more about whose art can I publish? Whose work can I push out there? Probably to, you know, the detriment of the success of the project as a business, because I'm not thinking about my customers. I'm thinking about the people who want to be involved. I've taken times to think about the audience, but yeah, even from the beginning, it was it wasn't about who can I sell this to. It was about whose work can I share with more people. So yeah,
Did you have your own work that you were also trying to share, or was the creation of the zine itself the work you were sharing?
definitely the second thing. I have occasionally, maybe four times in the 23 issues that I've published, maybe four times published my own work, but I really started it as a way to open blank pages for other people, primarily people whose work I really loved and wanted to see, wanted to have in my hands. I've been asked that a number of times because I do art. I do photography. I do abstract expressionism painting. I do oil painting. I do collage. Like I do a bunch of random art stuff. But yeah, I don't know. It doesn't feel. I didn't create a space for myself, so it feels a little weird to put my work out there. Usually when I do, it's because I like have an odd number of pages and like as I'm about to send it to the printer, I'm like, oh crap, I need one more page of something, and I'll like throw something together real quick.
For anyone listening not familiar, when you are designing things like booklets, there is a certain amount of pages you need to have to actually print and make that spine the right way and have the pages lay out the way you want.
Multiples of 16 is what I'm on. You can do multiples of 4, but then sometimes if it's like an off multiple of 4 and not a multiple of 16, then it costs more to get it printed. So yeah, it's publishing is a weird world.
It really is. Actually, I find it really fascinating that you are continuing to do this print specific medium because it's something that less and less people are doing, and less places are even offering as a way to service. Finding people that will print on scale has probably become more challenging over time, I would imagine, from the look on your
Yep,
face.
you're not wrong.
Do you find that the more you create the more you put this product out in the world, the more creative people in coffee come forth and say they were inspired by it? Or is this kind of taking inspiration from that and sharing it with the rest of the world?
I would say probably, well, maybe a little bit of both. I've heard from people on both sides of that. I don't want to even call it an aisle. I've heard from people both sides of that opinion, I guess. I definitely, especially going to in-person events again, like I was at SCA Expo in Chicago just a couple of weeks ago, and like so many people came up to me and said that it was an inspiration to them, either reading through the zine or seeing their work published for sometimes the first time, inspired them to continue doing their artwork. I've heard that a couple of times from a number of people, like, I didn't think my artwork was worth anything, and then you published it, and now I'm inspired to continue working, which always feels super super special because, yeah, I think the more art there is in the world, the better.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I've had a few people say they started their coffee business because they've listened to this show, and my immediate reaction is no, 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 no.
No,
Like,
don't. Yeah.
think it
That's not
through.
what I
Like,
wanted for you.
yeah, think it through before you go all the way. But that's just me. Maybe a little Midwestern fear of pushing someone down the wrong path.
I hear that.
How is this work, and connecting with people that in coffee that aren't necessarily working with you through coffee? How has it changed your perspective, if at all, of the industry as a whole?
Oh man, it every single time that I get to the point of publication where I'm going through the submissions and looking at the work people have sent in to me, like it reignites a fire within me that I both in the people in the coffee industry, but also just like people and our capacity for creativity. Yeah, each issue I cry. Probably, and I'm not a crier. I am not. I'm also from the Midwest, so I have that stoic, like Nordic, like don't let your emotions show. But yeah, I cry probably at least 3 times each time I'm looking through submissions, and I get between, I don't know, usually 40 and 60, 70, 80 at the top number submissions each issue. So, but 3 times is like the minimum, where I'll just like see a piece of work that just like really, really fucking hits me. I'll read a poem or a short story that's just absolutely remarkable, and I'm like, how did people think of this? People are so creative. Yeah, each time that I'm going through that part of the publication process is, I'm just like, people are amazing. Coffee people are so creative.
There was a time before social media where we didn't necessarily realize how many creative people were out there in the world. So people who were doing creative things wherever they might have been, they only saw so many other people doing that. They couldn't get inspired as much by other people unless they went looking for resources. Now, every single day, my feed is blowing up with somebody who's doing something amazing, which just simultaneously helps me think, oh, I should do this thing, or it makes me go, I should do that thing. But it also makes me go, oh, there are so many more creative people. Is my thing really valid? It's become a form of self-editing almost.
Yeah, yeah,
Of, am I really passionate enough about this thing to give it as much attention as it's going to need
totally.
to stand
Yeah,
out if that's what my goal is?
yeah.
Which it isn't always. Sometimes it's just to keep my hands busy while I watch a
Yeah,
show.
for sure. Yeah, I mean, that kind of makes me think of like the trajectory of the zine from when I started it. Because right now I'm in the middle of year 7. I started it in the beginning of 2018, and so now we're 2024. We've gone through a pandemic and the aftermath and all that, but the even in these 7 years, the ability of people to create work of different media. I mean, because now video, in 2017, 2018, like phones, unless you got the newest iPhone, you couldn't make videos because the files were too big, and like the apps didn't exist to edit videos like you can now, just in a couple swipes. Instagram was like big, but people weren't engaging with it the way that they do now, both creatively and like sharing their work and supporting the work of others. So when I started the zine, when I was thinking about it in 2017 and then launched it in 2018, I had the thought, oh, should I make this an Instagram page? Because it can theoretically reach more people digitally. And the goal was to share the work of other coffee people to other coffee people so that we could know each other outside of, as I said before, outside the bubble of coffee. Because I had been going to local coffee events, and then I started going to like SCA and more national events. And I got this sense, or I had this recognition that we're like only ever talking about coffee when we get together. You know, like if it's a local throwdown, we're talking about who can pour the best swan, or, you know, if it's a local brew off, what's your brewing method? Like, what's your favorite brewing method? And talking about brewing parameters or roast parameters. And those things are all great. But at the end of the day, that's not what makes us remarkable, unique, brilliant people. And I was going to throwdowns and kind of looking around, and the same handful of people were winning the throwdowns every single time. But then I would look around the room, and like a close friend of mine had an art opening earlier that week. And I looked around again, and I knew somebody else who was a musician who was having a show the next weekend. And I was like, why are we only celebrating the 3 people who can pour the best milk in espresso? Like, that is great, but it is so limiting to how we can celebrate each other and how we can like express ourselves. So that was the impetus for the zine. So when I was starting it, I was like, do I want to make an Instagram page because people all over can see it? And I realized that I wanted something that was tactile, that was physical, that you can hold in your hand and that you could pass on to a friend, like literally pass to another person, because there weren't as many ways then that we could share our work again as there are now. Of course, the internet still existed, Instagram still existed, but it wasn't as it is now, which is, to be like fully honest, kind of is bringing me to a point where I'm wondering how the zine is still relevant, or how the zine in its current form might not be as, I don't want to say relevant, but accomplishing the goals that I set it out to accomplish. Because the discoverability of artists online now, sure, it's a kind of a saturated market, but it's way bigger than it was when I started the zine, and it's way bigger than the zine. With the zine, I print like 600 copies each time, sometimes up to 1,000, depending on cash flow. But but you know, that's a pretty small circulation as far as reach goes. On Instagram, you can reach hundreds of thousands of millions of people. But
I don't want to argue against you, but I'm just, as I'm listening to you processing, you mentioned earlier people who may have seen their work published for the first time.
Yeah.
The experience of seeing something in a physical space. Yeah. And now the fact that anyone can put their art on Instagram, which is wonderful, but it also makes what you're doing with the print edition have a certain cachet and value as other art journals and zines fall aside, because frankly, I don't think the financial side of it works for most people.
It does not. The financial side is not, it's not a lucrative endeavor.
Yeah, you're not buying a lake house with your zine sales.
No.
Not yet anyway. But
maybe next year.
Maybe it's 600, maybe it's 1,000, but those are the only copies of that will ever exist. And as they spread, the value of the information in them, the ideas, takes more weight, because whoever picked it up made a concerted effort to get offline. And they're connecting with it in a way that they're not in the 3 seconds that they're scrolling through a feed.
Totally. Yeah. And that's the other reason that I made it physical. It was because I mean, even 7 years ago, I was like, I spend too much time on my phone. I want something to look at. I want to be able to see other people's work. I want to be able to connect with people, maybe not face to face, but I want to be able to connect with people, appreciate people's creativity in a way that isn't on a screen. And yeah, that's why the print.
Yeah, the nice thing about that print is that, let's say that book is sitting in a coffee shop in North Carolina. Somebody may pick that up today, a year from now, 5 years from now, 20 years from now. It might get passed around, spread around. Someone might pick it up and have that same reaction that you did when you saw that piece of work for the first time,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, and go forth. I would never behold anyone to do something simply because I liked it. However, I'm encouraging you to continue at least for a little bit longer. You mentioned earlier on that you do work with Black and White in Raleigh, North Carolina, pretty
Mm-hmm.
acclaimed roaster as far as the world is concerned right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Your work there takes you around traveling. What is this sort of the work you're doing in the coffee industry now? And in particular, how do you use your creative side to uplift what they're doing over there?
Yeah, so actually, my work with Black and White doesn't really take me around as much. My freelance and my wanderlust does. But Black and White is gracious enough, and we've kind of configured a role for me at this point that allows me to do that in my own free time. I did go on an origin trip to Colombia, to La Palma y El Tucán, with our roasting team with Black and White. But yeah, primarily my travels are my own, are Roaster Cat or Coffee People Zine, or just because I pick places I want to go and I make it happen. But yeah, I started with Black and White 2.5 years ago as a roaster, as a production roaster. And I love production roasting. It's like to have, I think it's kind of in a similar vein of why I liked being a barista. Like being a production roaster, you have a certain amount of coffee you have to roast, and you do it, you execute it, you are done at the end of the day, like you're good to go. And you can feel like, good about your work and proud of yourself for getting it all accomplished. So I started with them as a production roaster 2.5 years ago. And through the kind of educational content I've created on Instagram, on my Roaster Cat account, I've had more and more opportunities for travel, for like speaking at different events, for going on other origin trips that I've been invited on. And it kind of came to a point where you can't be a production roaster and be gone half the time because someone needs to be standing in front of the machine and pushing the buttons and loading the green and everything. So it's probably 8 or 9 months ago now, I transitioned away from the like daily roasting team at Black and White and onto the content, marketing, creative side, which has been it's I'm so sad to not be roasting every day because I do love production roasting, but it has been a really great opportunity for me to explore other creative sides of work that I like to do. So one of the main things is I've learned how to use a Fujifilm. It's a digital camera, but I've learned how to become a better photographer and videographer through my work at Black and White. I've kind of flexed different communications muscles and learned different ways of communicating things online and to different audiences, because with Roaster Cat and everything I do there, it's pretty exclusively education and very driven by whatever comes across my like whatever comes in front of me and whatever catches my attention. I'm like, ooh, look at this cool thing, or I'm cleaning the roaster today. Here's the tools that I'm using. I'm pretty proficient at that type of kind of like shooting from the hip, off the cuff kind of content. So my work with Black and White being part of the content and marketing team has stretched me to figure out ways to plan ahead, to work with other people, to pitch ideas, to take the ideas other people have and find ways to execute them, to sell a product and not just, or at least educate about a product rather than just whatever the heck I feel in the moment is cool, is interesting to me, and maybe would also be interesting to other people.
Thinking about
Yeah.
the customer. You
Yeah.
have a
Yeah.
you have a quick video that I saw when I was scrolling through your feed where you are at a farm and someone's videotaping you explaining the difference between washed honey, uh,
Yep.
natural processing, and I thought in 15 seconds I have understood that concept better than I'm going to share that with everyone who's listening.
Yeah. Yeah.
Better than I have in dozens of conversations because I'm not naturally coffee intuitive or
Mm-hmm.
coffee
Mm-hmm.
intelligent, and I have to keep learning. And that was such a simple concept, and so presenting complex ideas simply is such a challenge, and you've been doing a great job of doing that. Do you see our kind of next generation of technology that you've been kind of learning and moving into? AI is obviously the buzzword right now, but do you find it difficult to maintain authenticity in a world where we can all throw a few buzzwords into a algorithm and come out with something? Or do you see that being an advantage in the future that you either know it or aren't using it?
Yeah, this is a really interesting question, and I haven't delved into AI a
It's a rabbit
ton.
hole question. There's no
Yeah.
question.
I mean, I've definitely have, a chat GPT account. I've definitely I had this idea to have chat GPT give me instructions on how to roast 10 pounds of green coffee to roasted, like including the charge temperature and gas adjustments and end temperature and everything. It couldn't do it, obviously. It doesn't, not yet, at least. So I've tooled around a little bit, but not a ton. And I think it's, I know AI is different than other technologies that has come before it, but I think it is, at the end of the day, a tool that we can use to accomplish our goals, or a crutch we can use to take shortcuts. And I think it depends on how you decide to use it for yourself. And to me, that's where the question of authenticity comes into play. If you're using it to, get a boost rather than using it to accomplish your vision, and of course the line to that is really blurred and only a person can know that within themselves, but yeah, I think that's kind of where the line is for me between authenticity and not.
I have a feeling Leonardo had this conversation with somebody about the mirror or possibly about reproducing an image
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
some point. Every generation has their technology. AI
Yes,
just seems like such an overwhelming thing,
for sure. Yeah.
especially in the creative field.
Yeah, for sure. And there are people, this is kind of where I hesitate to make definitive statements, because there are so many people who are so much more educated on this than I, who can, speak circles around me for the little that I know, the little that I've investigated or played around. But I don't know. It is also like, I don't want to be the, alarmist, whatever, but like the deep fakes are crazy.
Well, that brings us back to Coffee People Zine in that, do you accept AI generated artwork? How do you know if something submitted has been enhanced or is that even the right term? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, and I haven't I haven't come across a thing that I have questioned, or that I've been like, is this just something like spat out from AI? I will say that I have used AI maybe twice, like AI image generated
Hmm.
content, maybe twice, maybe three times in the zine in the last year and a half, primarily because I want to pay, and this gets really dicey, and I know there's a huge gray area. I want to pay artists for their work, and my budget, because printing is expensive, is very minimal. So there have been a couple of like articles that people have written, commissioned articles that I've paid the writers for, and I ask writers to send in any images that they have they'd like to go along with their work. But some writers are like, I'm a writer. I don't have imagery to go along with this. So I've made kind of like imagery to go along with somebody's
Sure.
article in order to like complement or to try and bring a visual aspect to their written work without, because I can't
Without
afford
breaking
it,
the bank.
having to pay, an artist. There have been a couple of times where I have paid artists because, like, specifically to do that sort of commission thing. But yeah, so it's, I recognize that the moral quandary is like, do I use AI and not pay someone because I don't have money, or do I not put a visual component because I don't have money, or do I like underpay an artist the value of their work and still put an artist's work out? And yeah, it's
The fact that you're thinking about it puts you on the right side of history. And realistically, you're using a tool that enables you to continue producing work that does pay people, which is rare.
thank you for saying that. I'll that assuages my guilt a little bit. I will say that, yeah, I did that maybe two or three times, and I was like somewhat satisfied with the results, but there is still like a little bit of a dissonance
Mhm.
deep within me, such that I will very likely not be doing it again. It's like enough of a gray area that I'm like, I'll just like figure something else out if that situation comes up again.
We've talked just a little bit about travel, and obviously it's important to you in your personal life outside of coffee. I'm wondering, what is it that is special about travel for you? What do you take away from those experiences that motivates you or inspires you?
I've always loved to travel. For me, as a baseline, I'll wax poetic about it in a second, but as a baseline, it just like excites me. Like I get good feelings when I'm in new places, surrounded by new people, like observing new situations and having new experiences. It just makes me feel good, like as an emotional experience. But that as kind of my baseline or my visceral motivator for travel. On top of that, it's getting to see and experience different ways of life. And maybe this kind of like, I haven't thought about it in this way. Maybe it relates to creativity, because when you're put in new situations, you have to think in different ways. And creativity at its core is really just different ways of thinking, or thinking in the same way in new contexts, or, putting different ideas together. Yeah, I don't know. Meeting people who have had different life experiences, different cultures, different languages, different foods. Also, I love to eat. I mean, as a coffee person, like sensory food and beverage is real high on my enjoyment list. So getting to have different foods and drink is really fun. Yeah, I don't know. It's the people and the experiences that open my eyes and mind to new ways of thinking, for me, is the kind of most important aspect of travel.
Did you grow up traveling, or was it something that started as you were older?
I did grow up traveling. My family has pretty much traveled since I was very, very, very young. And it's something that my parents were very intentional to encourage and like create a life where we did travel a good deal. Most of it was within the US, but we also traveled internationally. I grew up going on family vacations, traveling with my family. I still travel with my family. That my mom, dad, and brother, the four of us will still go on family vacations. Even last summer, we went on a trip, and yeah, I grew up doing it. We still do it. I think my parents' purpose for encouraging travel at a young age was really to open our minds to new things, new ways, and prioritize spending money and time on experiences rather than on material possessions. And yeah, that's carried through with me into adulthood.
We're already coming up on 45 minutes. I could keep asking you questions and I'm sure get wonderful answers, but I don't want to steal your whole day. So I want to make sure I get to a few key components to end up our conversation.
Yeah.
And one thing that I've been wondering is just as you've been going through this process from uh, taking into account you have travel, you have your social work career, which led into another career that accidentally fell into another career almost. Do you have any sort of advice that you've taken from that time that you think has been such a value add to your life that you'd like to share?
Hmm. That's a great question. This is advice, maybe that it's advice that I have to keep reminding myself of, but and it's advice that works for me in the way that my brain works, in the way that I experience the world. But really, it's just don't get too far ahead of yourself. I occasionally struggle with worrying about the future and anxiety and those lovely things. But when I kind of look back, I couldn't have anticipated that I would end up where I am now. And I'm not the kind of person who can set one singular goal and be in like locked in pursuit of that one goal. I'm much more like, ooh, this thing looks cool over here. Let me go try that. Oh, and now that thing over there, that looks interesting. I'm going to go see what that's about. So maybe more than don't get too far ahead of yourself is like know thyself. If you're a kind of person who has the ability to like lock focus on something and pursue it, great, cool, do it and let yourself do it. If you're the kind of person who makes things up as you go and it often works out, go for that and see see what happens. I'm definitely much more of the second category. Though I will say that maybe a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, I've always, as we've established, loved to travel. And since I started in coffee, have loved coffee. But a couple of years ago, I kind of made an intentional like note in my mind that like, I want to travel for coffee as much as possible. Is there a way that I can make that happen? And at this point, I can say I've been like successful at accomplishing that goal. I have like multiple trips planned coming up. I'm going to be leading a trip or maybe multiple to origin countries later this year and possibly further into the future. And yeah, have found a way to, through my bopping and weaving and seeing that this thing was cool over here and that thing was cool over there, found a way to where I wanted to be, I guess.
I call that bopping and weaving creative raccooning because you see
Oh,
something shiny and you have to have it. And then
I
while you're holding
love
on to it,
that.
you see something else shiny and you have to have that too. But you
That's
don't want
so
to drop
great.
the first thing yet.
Uh,
I think you also just had like a $1 billion idea, which is a travel agency specifically for taking people on coffee trips. And not even coffee industry people, just like normal people.
I'm working on some things. I'm working on some
Oh,
things.
did I? Yeah, there we go. All right, put my name on the list. I'm ready to go. What comes next? What's the future of the zine, Coffee People Zine, and the future of Cat Melheim?
Yeah, the future, the future. Well, as I said, I'm working on some trips to coffee producing regions. There are a couple that I'm working on, one that's about to launch that I've released some information for. So if anybody listening wants to come with me to Colombia, October 9th through 15th, keep your eyes peeled on my Roaster Cat Instagram for information about that. And that will be for coffee industry people and anybody who just wants to go to some coffee farms and experience some other Colombian cultural things. We're going to go do some art. We're going to have a cooking class. It's going to it's going to be great. But yeah, more travel. What else can I say? I've got a couple of things plotting and planning behind the scenes.
Well, hopefully you'll share them here when at some point.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I'll come on. I'll come back anytime. Yeah, next for the zine. To be honest, I'm not entirely sure. This year, the first issue was released, which the theme is past. The next issue will be, the theme will be present, and that'll come out in July. So if anybody who's listening wants to submit artwork, it's all open submissions. You do get paid a small amount, depending on sponsorships and how many submissions. It's between like $20 and $40. So it's not a lot, but you get a free zine, you get $20 to $40 to spend on art supplies, or to take yourself out to dinner, or to, I don't know, buy your mom a bouquet of flowers this Sunday, or whatever you want to do.
If they're listening to this show, they're probably going to buy coffee with it. So
true. Yeah. You can get some good coffees for $20. You can get some 20 to $40. Yeah. So check out on Instagram at Coffee People Zine. Zine is Zine. And their information for submissions and stuff is on there. Also, coffeepeople.org has the information. And yeah, the theme for this coming issue is present. And then the last issue of this year, which will come out in November, the theme is future. So the future of Coffee People Zine is an issue called Future.
I feel like that's going to get real meta.
I hope
I think about it further and further and further.
I really hope it does.
When you head off on this future coffee adventure and you're running late, but you still need a cup of coffee, so you pop into just a random coffee shop, what are you going to order?
I mean, I'm going to take a look around and give it a little assessment, but if I have no time if I'm just really, really quick, I'm just going to go with the drip, and I'm going to take a sip of it. And if it needs cream, I'm going to put cream in it. I don't usually add sugar to my coffee, but for a drip that is not to my liking, I will happily add as much cream as it takes.
In this magical place, let's imagine that you walk in, you go, oh, this is going to be the best place. Then what do you order?
Well, then I'll order a couple of things. I'll still order a drip, because I always love to see what folks feature on their drip menus. I'll order an espresso if they have like a 1-in-1 option where I can get like one shot of espresso like by itself and one shot of espresso with a little bit of milk in it. I'll do that. And lately I've been loving checking out like the seasonal and featured menus at cafes, because again, with the creativity, people have been getting so creative with seasonal drinks and different flavor combinations and different ways of elevating, it's not just the pumpkin spice latte anymore, or like a vanilla latte. Like there are so many absolutely incredibly creative and delicious seasonal or special drinks. So yeah, if I'm going into a new place and I'm like, this place is going to be good, I'll get a drip, I'll get an espresso with and or without milk, and I'll get something with flair.
Should I have asked something that I didn't, at least on this first go around?
No, we can listen to it and have a second go. No, this was very thorough, and also like different than other interviews that I've had. I feel like we got to different things that I haven't covered in other interviews. So this was really fun.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad. I'm not really great at my job, so that's probably part of it. I just kind of wander around as I see fit.
That means you're the best at it's the raccooning, creative raccooning.
Absolutely. It's the perfect combination of being creative and not worrying about how much money you're making because you've lived without it long enough.
Yep. You got to get creative in those situations. 100%.
Absolutely. Kat, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on the show and chat with me, share some of your story, and I really look forward to seeing what comes next in that future issue and catching up on my back issues of Coffee People and chatting again someday.
Yeah, same. Thank you so much for having me. This has been a pleasure.
Okay, some key takeaways from today's podcast. Kat is a multi-hyphenate creative coffee person who's been forging her own path through, around, above, and below coffee. I got the impression that despite the many tangents, she has found the things in life that matter to her and gone about making them part of her daily reality, Frankly, it was both inspiring and a little bit intimidating. Coffee wasn't the original path. Kat was a social worker who made her way to coffee because she needed a break. I think at some point, a lot of people hit that point, especially when they've worked really hard to reach a career goal. As a society, maybe especially so in America, productivity and pushing forward continuously is exalted and rewarded, often to the detriment of our mental and physical selves. So, take care of yourselves, alright? Drink some good coffee. Anyway, she was in the right place, at the right time, to pursue a career and grow her community in coffee, despite already having one in an entirely different field, a field she had worked hard to pursue and achieve success in. Leaving something behind can be a challenge, but this was Kat's life, and she chose to do what she knew was best for her. It's a good lesson. You may be on a path, but there is no rule that says you can't step off and go another direction. The zine didn't start to appease an audience, rather to offer a platform for fellow coffee people, coffee enthusiasts, to showcase their other talents. Coffee isn't the only thing that fills a coffee person's life, despite how it feels sometimes or looks from the outside. The Coffee People zine served as an opportunity to engage the community around Kat in a new way, shining a light into the corners, and for her to connect as a human being with one of the big things that separates us from our environment, which is art, both our ability to create it and our ability to appreciate and be moved by it. Although I dare say my dog Keto seems to quite like some of the paintings I've made of cacti in coffee cups. As Kat said, the more art there is in the world, the better. So for this first act, leading into the next, she has been bopping and weaving, taking the tangents and opportunities as they come. Keep your eyes peeled for future Kat-hosted origin trips, and if you'd like to submit your work to an upcoming edition of the Coffee People zine, we'll include all of those links in this show's podcast notes and some more information in the newsletter found at coffeepeoplepodcast.com. Finally, I have some thoughts on social media and AI that have been marinating, so stay tuned after the show for a little insight. And please sign up for those newsletters on coffeepeoplepodcast.com. I think you'll like them. That's our Coffee People conversation for today. Thanks to Kat Melheim for sharing, not just her story, but the name, and to you for listening to the stories of Coffee People, for being inspired by their creative and entrepreneurial efforts, and for supporting this podcast by listening, sharing, and sometimes buying us a cup of coffee. I'm drinking one of them right now. You can support Kat's Coffee People zine by subscribing to a print or digital version online at coffeepeople.org. And you should follow her Instagram and YouTube channels at roastercat, cat with a K. I do, and I often learn things. She's really talented at breaking down complex ideas into simple, easy-to-digest concepts. Helping us bring this and all of the episodes on Season 10 on the Coffee People podcast to you is our presenting sponsor, Roastar Coffee Packaging, found online at roastar.com. They'll help you tell the big story of your small business. They're also some really cool people. Shout out to Sadie and Nick and Danny, Amber, Ashley, Hallie, Scott, and so many more. Thank you for being part of this show. We're also supported by some great coffee industry partners. Our legacy partners include Zoombar Coffee and Tea, Steady State Coffee Roasting, Moster Coffee Company, Coffee Cycle Roasting, Maria Coffee, and Cape Horn Green Coffee Importers. A special thank you to Alden at Crossings Coffee and the Hales brothers at Hosea Coffee Source, who've been supporting our Coffee Smarter efforts. Our full city partners include Ignite Coffee Company, Ascend Coffee Roasters, Civets Roasting Machines, Me and My Uncle Coffee, Craft 42 Roasters, and Cozy Canine Coffee. That's all for today and for this season, but don't worry, we won't be gone long. We've already started recording Season 11, and we'll have all new shows dropping in just a few weeks. I gotta get to work. You can find all of our shows online at roastwestcoast.com or coffeepeoplepodcast.com. Both links go to the same place. Thank you to all of the Season 10 guests, including today's guest, Kat Melheim of the Coffee People zine, Hannah Noakes of Tekwani Design, Daniel Cernianto, founder of The Bossy Tamper, Richard Messino of Mamu Coffee, Aaron Nenow at Ascend Roasters, Dennis Garcini and Shane Himmelman, the founders of Waffy Coffee, Ricardo Lopez, founder of Bellwether, David Kiln, children's book author and co-founder of Kiln Coffee in Grand Junction, Heather Kelly and Miranda Caldwell of the Coffee MBA, and now their own offerings, Brandon Seabrook Nelson of Bridge City Coffee in South Carolina, James Harper of Filter Stories, and everyone else who I met, spent a little time with, shared a coffee or perhaps a beer with at Coffee Fest in New York and this year's Specialty Coffee Association Expo in Chicago, Illinois. You've all become part of my coffee community, and I couldn't be more thrilled that I'm even allowed to be part of it, even a little bit. Looking back, what a great season. This show, the Coffee People Podcast, is part of the Roast West Coast Coffee Network. This episode has been written, produced, researched, and recorded by me, Ryan Woldt. I hope this episode has found you happy, healthy, and with at least a thread of sanity left, enabling you to make it through the day. Always tip your baristas, and be sure to drink good coffee. So, take care of yourselves, alright? 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 It's really hard to say alright and make it sound alright. Man, what a wild time to be alive. I don't know about you, but the whole AI social media thing has made it impossible. Nearly impossible, at least, for me to believe pretty much anything that I'm seeing on Instagram or TikToks or Facebook. I'm not actually on TikTok, but I'm sure that it's true there too. And it makes me wonder how it's possible for us to feel authentic, or for any of the messages that we might be spreading about coffee or about our coffee podcasts to get through, to get out there. And so we're going to take a little bit of a break from the social media. Our primary is Instagram and Facebook at Roast West Coast. And you'll see updates there, new shows, that sort of thing. But we probably won't be as active as we have been in the past. And that's because we're out drinking coffee and hopefully talking to you in the world, where it's us and we can just be ourselves. Without the need to polish and update and wonder if the words that are being said or the images that we're seeing are real. I am definitely feeling more analog these days. I'm not that old, I don't think. Well, it's all relative, I'm sure, but I'm not old compared to my grandfather, who just turned 101. Shout out to you. Shout out to you, Melvin. I don't call him Melvin. I call him Grandpa. If you'd like to follow the show, the best place to do so is online. CoffeeSmarterPodcast.com, CoffeePeoplePodcast.com, or RoastWestCoast.com. All three go to the same website, essentially. Sign up for the newsletter there, and you'll get all of our shows and see pretty much anything you could see on social media, and you'll know it's coming from me. Your host, Ryan Woldt, because we're not using AI yet, and I don't know that we will. The parts of my job that AI can automate are the parts that I like. The writing of the scripts, the researching of guests, the creation of the newsletter. Those are the things that I love to do, and the reason I started this show. That and, meeting new people from around the world to talk about coffee and motivation and entrepreneurship, that's the best part of the job. So if I can figure out how to get AI to wash the dishes, give the dog a bath, then maybe we got something here. That'll free up more time for coffee. Anyways, it's all a long-winded way of saying we're taking a little bit of a break from social media for the summer. We're going to see how it goes, see if it impacts the show or your ability to connect with us. You can always send us an email, roastwestcoast@gmail.com. And until then, cheers. I hope you're drinking good coffee. And tip your baristas. Don't forget to do that. So yeah, please tip your baristas and drink good coffee. We'll see you soon. If you are in the early stages of your coffee journey, we want to support you. Check out the Coffee Smarter Education podcasts. Coffee Smarter is designed to enable coffee drinkers to brew a better cup of coffee at home. And Coffee Smarter Pro covers industry-specific topics for baristas, roasters, shop owners, and aspiring coffee professionals. You'll find both shows on your favorite podcast platforms or on our website at coffeesmarterpodcast.com.